Welcome to the Cubs REKAP podcast. This is Gordon Wittenmeyer going solo today with Cap, we think, on vacation. We're still trying to locate him. With us is a special guest, Matt Mervis, a very special guest. Cubs fans have been waiting a long time to see at Wrigley Field and have finally got their firsthand look at him over this past week and have seen some pretty good results so far. So again, Matt, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate that. I think the best place to start is just kind of with your first day. I mean, it had to be kind of crazy for you that Friday afternoon at Wrigley Field. I think 31,000 people there, probably about 20,000 of them were your family and friends. But you got your first hit and your first RBI in that game too. I mean, just can you take us through the experience and the emotions of that?
Yeah, it was crazy. Like you said, I had a ton of people there supporting me, and a bunch of people flew in to see me and support me. So I wasn't just playing for myself, but also for those that have supported me throughout my career up to this point. But playing in front of that crowd on a 70-degree day with clear skies and 30,000 people in the stands was incredible.
Yeah, including a standing ovation before you took a swing, right?
Yeah, every time I came up to bat, the crowd was going wild. And after I got my first hit and that RBI, just walking off the field, the dugout was going crazy. The crowd was going crazy. It was really cool.
So your parents were on their way to see you play anyway, right? Like, I think on the way to Columbus from DC?
That's right.
And that's when you called them and said, change the flight?
Yeah, they had just parked at the Baltimore airport, tried to get a flight from Baltimore to Chicago, but there were none available, so they had to drive over to the DC airport and make it happen.
So what happened there? We saw so many people in the stands wearing those Mervis jerseys. In fact, your dad had like a MASH T-shirt underneath the jersey, I think. What about all those people? Is that just last minute working the phones and saying, hey, get to Chicago?
Yeah. My sister flew in from college. My brother flew in from South Carolina, where he lives. 4 friends from high school, a couple college teammates, aunt and uncle. My girlfriend and her family flew up. So everyone just scrambled last minute and got here in time.
It's been almost a week now. You've got some games under your belt, some hits under your belt. Has this stuff sunk in?
Yeah, it's slowed down a little bit. Really just feels like I'm back to playing baseball. The game planning is the same. It's getting ready to face really good pitching and try to help us win however I can. So just try not to let the crowd or the environment get too big and just stick to what I'm used to.
Man, Lord knows you've seen some good pitching. That Marlins staff has some horses on it. And I think you face the reigning Cy Young winner, and then the Cardinals come in and throw Miles Mikolas at you guys. So, I mean, what's been kind of it feels like this is an obvious question, or it goes without saying, but maybe some people wouldn't necessarily look at that. What's the biggest difference you see? Like when all those different levels and different prospects, the talented guys you did face along the way, what's the difference when you get here at bat, game to game, and you see guys like I just mentioned?
Yeah, so far it's just the execution. Early on against the Marlins, I chased a few sliders out of the zone, and they just kept throwing good chase pitches. And then Cardinals yesterday, they would specifically Mikolas, my second at bat, set me up with a good changeup off the plate and then threw a sinker off the front hip. So, when guys need to make a pitch, they can do that. And if I show that I'll chase something, they'll keep throwing it. So just some small adjustments that I'll have to make, but nothing that I haven't done before.
Do you still find, they talk about, at least the old rule of thumb used to be, you might get one pitch in at bat in the big leagues. Don't miss it, that kind of thing. Have you found any truth? Is it too soon to tell? Is there truth to that compared to what you've experienced at other levels?
Yeah, that seems about right. But even, again, mentioning my Marlins at-bats, if I show that I'm going to chase pitches before I get that one pitch to hit, then I never will. They'll just keep throwing them out of the zone and get me to swing at it if I'll keep doing that.
What do you what goes through your mind when you hear, even well ahead of your call up, that people are calling for you to join the club and they expect big things out of you, and your debut as compared to when Rizzo came up or Chris Bryant came up or Javi Baez came up? What goes through your mind when you hear stuff like that?
I try not to think about it too much. Obviously, Rizzo was beloved here and helped bring a World Series back to Chicago, and those are some big shoes to fill. But my goal isn't to play how he played. It's just to help us win however I can. It's great that the fans wanted me here and are supporting me, but that won't continue if I don't play well and I don't help us win. So that's all I care about.
Yeah, it is a tempting comparison to make, just because you guys are both kind of big power hitting lefties that play first base and kind of slot in the lineup similarly. So I mean, it's kind of natural, but for people who may not know this, the 2020 draft, you got drafted in the 2020 draft out of Duke, and there was only 5 rounds there. So you probably would have been drafted 6 to 8, 6 to 10, something in that range. You would have been drafted in the next cluster of rounds for sure. And that's where Rizzo was drafted, right? So that another comparison. But when the time came, you were one of those guys that was highly regarded, who there basically weren't enough rounds for. So teams were on the phone right away after that, calling the guys they really wanted, such as yourself. And we talked about this a little bit last year. It kind of came down to the Cubs and the Yankees for you. Two pretty good franchises to be able to choose from. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned Rizzo was a little part of that equation for you last year. Can you kind of take us through that decision when you got the pinstripes on the one hand and you got the Cubs who are trying to build back to World Series contention?
Yeah, my planning throughout that process was, if everything goes right in the way I see it, if I'm in the big leagues in 2+ years, where am I going to have an opportunity to play right away? And so I did my planning on all the teams that called me, and like you said, it came down to the Cubs and Yankees, just based off of history and player development and left-handed power in the system, all those factors. But really, I just had to guess. Either Rizzo was going to, in my mind, either he was going to sign back with the Cubs, or the Yankees were going to go get a first baseman. So I just picked one and hoped that I was right.
You figure you're right now?
I think so.
Yeah, it seems like it's working out. Have you had that moment yet, or maybe you already felt that when you got called up? Guys talk a lot about it, like they have that epiphany when it's like, okay, now I belong. Okay, I can do this here. It's that next step in, I want to get there. I know I'm good enough, but then there's that step, right, of, okay, I can do this at this level. Have you had that?
Yeah, confidence isn't typically an issue for me. I've always had more confidence in myself as a hitter than other people have had in me. So that's really what's driven me to this point. But yeah, getting the hit out of the way on the first day, especially against a tough lefty off a slider, and to hit a ball hard, was really, that just helped me settle in. And I was able to wake up that Saturday the next day and just get ready to play baseball again.
Yeah, it's funny. You said you've had more confidence in your hitting than some other people have. For people who don't know it, you were a two-way player in college. You pitched, you had a big arm, and even up toward the draft, people were suggesting maybe, or toward your senior year, people were suggesting maybe you should focus on pitching, and you decided not to because of your confidence in yourself.
Yeah. Some of my offers, even in free agency, were as a pitcher only.
Really?
Yeah. And I got a couple two-way offers, but
what teams? Can you share that with us?
I don't want to share those. They know that's what makes me happy. But yeah, I never felt right as a pitcher. I like you said, I had a big arm, but that didn't make me a good pitcher. I never had great secondary stuff, and I got hurt a couple times pitching, and what I missed when I was hurt was hitting. It wasn't pitching. So when I was building back from those injuries, and I was able to swing before I was able to throw, so that let me really just focus on hitting a few different times. And I realized, if I would take a swing every once in a while and just try to repeat that over and over again. And I felt like if I could do that, then I would be in good shape.
What do you think some of those evaluators were missing when it came to you as a hitter?
Really, I just didn't have much of a track record. I got 10 at-bats through my first 2 years at Duke. I didn't start my junior year, so there was a limited sample size that year. And even as a free agent after the 2019 draft, I had a really good summer in Cape Cod, but nobody was willing to pull the trigger on me.
It really hasn't been that long since all this water under the bridge and becoming a professional. In fact, I think you might have had until last year, maybe less than 500 bats, college and pro combined. But in this day and age of Shohei Ohtani, are you tempted to go try to make $600 million or whatever people think he's going to make because he's a two-way player?
Money talks, but no, I don't think so. I think I'm happy to not be pitching anymore, and what he does is incredible, and there's a reason why there's only one.
Hey, teams designate who their position player is who's going to pitch now. Is that you?
I don't know. We'll see when we get in that situation.
Okay, well, yeah, for your sake, hopefully you don't get in that situation. For people who may not know this, less than a year ago, by about a week, you were at high A. I mean, that's how quickly you traveled through the organization last year when things clicked after an up and down 2021. And really no season at all in 2020. We all know that. The pandemic wiped out the minor league season. You went from, I think May 14th was your last day at high A in South Bend, and mid-July was your last day at Double A. You spent the rest of the season at Triple A, go to big league camp this year, and then go back to Triple A, rake at Triple A for a month, and now you're in the big leagues. Less than a year after being at high A. I don't know, and the emotions and experience of that less than a year. Can you sum that up in 10 words or less? I couldn't do the question in 10 words or less. I'm just joking.
It happened really fast, but this is what I expected. I came in, like you said, I had a bad 2021. I came into spring training feeling really good and had some good results. And I told some of our front office people, look, I want to start in Double A. I feel like I'm ready, and I know I can go make an impact. And they said, rightfully so, they said, let's tackle A ball first and just make sure we're beyond that step. So, I spent my 6 weeks there, and I think it was good for me just to go and really have some success at that level and just carry it throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, the rise without so much as a real hiccup is pretty impressive just on its face in the minors, never mind landing here the way you have. So, obviously props on that. I mean, my gosh, last year you had a nickname, early in your AAA tenure, you already had a nickname, MASH, Mervis, which you got from our friend Evan Altman in Indianapolis. With fans and things like that, you had a T-shirt. Your dad was wearing MASH on your debut. When that's happening while you're still at AAA, really not even through your first really fully productive, really good season, when it takes until May of the next year, does it feel like that happened quickly, or does it feel like you had to wait at that point? People are starting to recognize you and you're getting a name and all that.
I think the timing was good. I have no complaints. I didn't feel rushed, and I didn't feel like I was waiting. I spent a really good amount of time in AAA last year. I got some extra at-bats in the fall league. I got my big league camp. I got the WBC, all to prepare for this week. And I needed all of those at-bats and all that experience to make sure that I was ready here. And to see people wearing shirts and my jerseys and stuff is really, really cool. But I don't think that the timing was wrong at all.
You went to spring training and a lot of people were thinking, we don't know where this team's going to go. They added a bunch of guys, and, certainly before they signed Hosmer, it was like people were penciling you in at first base. And then it was like, well, maybe he should still make the club at a camp. You weren't on the 40-man roster, so that's always a consideration when they do roster numbers and decisions in camp. But did you go into camp believing that, or being told that you had a legitimate opportunity to earn a spot?
That's a tricky one. Like you just mentioned, the 40-man roster, I knew that if I were to make the team, some moves would have to be made. And I don't know what the front office's strategy or thoughts on that were. My approach going into spring training was go play well, go learn from the guys that we brought in, and really just get ready for the season. My approach every day last year and into this year is just wake up every day and have a good game. Because if I can have a good game that helps the team win, it helps my development and hopefully helps the win or helps the Cubs bring back a World Series.
So when you take that approach and you go back to AAA and you get off to the start you did, do you start at that point saying, okay, I'm going to keep this up and good things will happen, but a month in, do you start allowing yourself to think, I wonder what makes sense. I wonder when it might happen. I wonder what, typical timing for something like this might be. And you start to look at the calendar at all?
Not really. I let my agent, who does a great job, they communicate with the front office and keep that out of my head. Again, my approach is wake up and have a good game. I have a really good support system who I can lean on if things do start popping in my head. But everyone around me did a really good job of helping me with that.
Yeah, part of the reason I asked is because I looked at the calendar in retrospect, and you missed debuting in your hometown, Washington, D.C. by a day. And I wondered if at any point you looked at, if this happens kind of on the early side, I could be at home when it happens.
Yeah, that would have been cool, just out of ease for family and friends traveling. But obviously they all made it here, and convenience wasn't a factor for them. They just wanted to be here whenever it was.
Yeah. Besides, I'm sure for your plans in future, there'll be plenty of times to play at Nats Park.
Right.
They drafted you. They were the first team to draft you, right?
Yeah, out of high school.
Yeah. 39th round, I think, and you went to Duke instead. Marcus Stroman went to Duke. I asked you about that last year, and I don't think you said maybe you had just run across him because he'd spoken at campus a couple times, but have you gotten to know him much better since? Yeah,
we spoke a few times in spring training and obviously here the last few days. And he's been great. He's been supportive. Obviously, he's a fellow Duke alum, and we have that in common. So I know Dansby's a Duke basketball fan too, and it seems like we have a good little circle here to fight off the Carolina fans.
By the way, who have you, with Stroman doing his own thing as a pitcher, who have you kind of leaned on in the clubhouse to get acclimated to things, or who's kind of come up to you and specifically offered their support?
My locker was next to Nico's in spring training, so I got to know him a little bit, and he's been really supportive, just trying to help me get acclimated. I'm next to Dansby here, which is a great brain to pick and a guy to just follow and see how he operates and has achieved his success. And then, again, Hosmer and Mancini have been really good brains to pick. Looking forward to haven't been able to do any defensive work with them yet, but I did with Hosmer a little bit in spring training, and I'm looking forward to that again. and just watching those guys hit, really how they go through their routine. Bellinger's has helped me out. Hap's helped me out. Really everyone. Madrigal, going back to our time together a little bit in AAA last year. And I'm next to Wesneski on the other side in the locker room, who we were teammates in Iowa as well last year. So there are plenty of guys who I can just go over, have a quick chat with, and try to get on the same page. Learn from them.
It strikes me when you mention Hosmer, what that says about him, because a lot of us anticipated that when your time came, it would be at the expense of his time with the Cubs. And obviously that it hasn't been that way. So, so it's worked out good for both of you, but obviously there is that little bit of a position collision there between the two of you, but he's that kind of a veteran guy, that kind of a clubhouse guy. It's been your experience with him?
Yeah, absolutely. He's been nothing but helpful. He called me over the other day to look at some, kind of just walk through how he game plans pitchers. Again, I mentioned the defensive aspect and really just the clubhouse leadership, watching him, how he interacts with everybody, and yeah, just kind of admiring how he goes about his work.
Okay. Hey, when you get called up, this team, part of the reason you get called up is because this team got off to the start that it did and wanted a boost. I mean, this is a team that it could have gone the other way, right? It could have been not quite as good a start, and then it could have just been, okay, we're talking about development. We're talking about, let's see what the team looks like in a month. This team got off to a really good start and wanted a boost for its lineup. You were brought in as a catalyst, to maybe help in the same way that, Morel was brought up, the other day. So in the context of you coming up in that, with that kind of team, they spent in the offseason, they got off to a good start. This team plans to win. So how much different does that make it for you when that's how you land in a debut? And then you just plug right into a lineup.
I don't think it makes it much different. Our goal is to win all throughout the system, and we got off to a really good start in AAA too, and we're trying to win ball games there. So obviously it's a little bit higher stakes up here, and the situations are a little bit more meaningful, but winning is winning. I'm a competitor. That's my goal, and that's everyone in the locker room's goal. So it just adds fuel to my fire and trying to help us win any way I can.
Awesome. Yeah, I just had a couple of really quick ones, just kind of offbeat ones. Knowing that you're from DC, you grew up in DC, and I think your parents still live there?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, like, when I think about what your hobbies might be, or which, stuff you might be interested in off the field, I wonder, are you a politics guy? Are you a policy wonk type of guy? Do you pay attention to that stuff?
So I was born in DC. I grew up in Maryland, a little bit outside of DC. So I'm not huge into the politics. I try not to dive too deep into that, but my hobbies are pretty basic. I like to cook. I like to go fishing once in a while, just try to relax and not do anything too stressful in my brain.
Well, DC is a good restaurant food town, and so Chicago. So probably some ways you feel a little bit at home in that regard. Last thing I had for you, I noticed the last couple of games, your walk-up music is a really old classic Toto song, Hold the Line. I mean, that's from the 70s, man. There's no way you can remember that song. Is there a reason for that?
No, I was just looking for songs one day, and I found that one little, it starts at 40 seconds. And that's just, I found that and I liked it. I don't know why, but I knew that's what I was going to go with.
There's no meaning to the line in the song or anything like that either?
No, I think Hold the Line is a cool message, but there's no, it's not a song that my parents liked growing up or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I like it. I mean, I'm an old guy. I like that song. Did you have a different song in your debut?
Yeah, it wasn't one that I picked. I just hadn't had my song in yet, so they played one for me. I'm not sure what it was.
Okay, this is the one you picked.
This is the one.
Well, I like that. That's good. That's a good one. All right. Well, hey, hope it provides some good fortune along the way for you, and you keep things up the way they've started.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks for taking your time and being with us on the podcast. According to CAP, this is an award-winning podcast, and we know it's the best Cubs podcast out there, and it just got better today with you on the show. So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.